What's going on, guys, and welcome back to WrestleRant, where every single Tuesday right here on the show, I, Graham GSM Matthews, break down all the content that I watch on the WWE Network. Today we're taking a break from the NXT Live special reviews to talk about SummerSlam 2016. Now, a lot like last year's SummerSlam review that I did before SummerSlam 2016 for SummerSlam 2015, I had not watched that show in its entirety. Now, the notable thing about that, any other show, really, I do not watch in its entirety until I have to review it for WrestleRant. The thing is that I was at SummerSlam 2015, and I was also at SummerSlam 2016. Now, I've watched back certain matches at various points, like, for example, I've watched back John Cena versus AJ Styles at least 4 or 5 times in the past year, yet I had yet to watch the entire event start to finish. And can you really blame me, though? I mean, it was a great time at SummerSlam, don't get me wrong. This was a good show, all things considered, maybe with the exception of the last half of the show, but overall, a pretty good show, I thought. But you can't really blame me. The show is way too long. 2015 was way too long, 2016 was way too long, and I'm sure this year is going to be no exception. This is the first year that SummerSlam will be in Brooklyn that I will not be there for. I'm going away this weekend, so I will not be there this coming Sunday or Saturday. It won't be a takeover either, or Raw or SmackDown or any of the shows. I'm not too upset about that. These shows don't look too amazing. I mean, takeover always delivers. That's a given. SummerSlam, I mean, the last 2 years, again, were great to be at. My first ever WWE pay-per-view was SummerSlam 2 years ago in 2015. But they weren't like must-see as I thought they would be. At least 2016. This card had a lot of potential, and it had its moments. There were a lot of good matches, to great matches even, but the overall show was nothing to write home about. So I don't normally talk about the kickoff show matches. I won't change that here, but very briefly. The funny thing is, before I get started, I look back at the Wikipedia results of these pay-per-views to kind of refresh my memory after I've watched them on the WWE Network. This show took me like 2 days to watch. I couldn't sit down and watch all 4 hours, over 4 hours of this pay-per-view. It said on the network, it was 4 hours and 3 minutes, which is fucking ridiculous. But anyway, so while watching the pay-per-view, it took me 2 days. But now that I'm reviewing it, I put up the Wikipedia results to make sure I don't forget anything. But the funny thing is that the Wikipedia results are so long because this card was so large that it almost takes up the entire page. I might have to scroll down to read results from this pay-per-view. It reminds me of those old WrestleMania cards, like WrestleMania 4 and 5 and 6, where it had like 12 fucking matches, and it was such a long show. But anyway, quick kickoff show match results. American Alpha, the Hype Bros, and the Usos beating Breezango, the Ascension, and the Vaudevillains. Sami Zayn and Neville. Remember Sami Zayn, like I talked about last month, and that amazing match of the year candidate with Kevin Owens from Battleground? Yeah, the guy was on the kickoff show, a match announced like 2 days before the show. Way to go, WWE. Way to carry his momentum over from that amazing match. But anyway, Sami Zayn and Neville beating the Dudley Boys, which would be notable for the Dudley Boys' final WWE match. They left WWE the next day. Devon became like a producer, and then Bubba just left. So this was their final match in the company on the kickoff show. Sheamus beat Cesaro in the first of best of 7 matches in their best of 7 series. So to kick off the actual show, we had Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens taking on Enzo and Big Cass. A fun match. Again, a complete waste of Kevin Owens. I love Jericho. This would lead to the, much lengthier than anticipated, but rather appreciated partnership between Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho. It really wasn't meant to go more than a few months, if not weeks. But it lasted as long as it did. I'm glad it did. So this match I'm thankful for that match. I'm thankful for this match, if only for that this match gave us the Jericho partnership for well over 8 months or so, for up until February when Jericho and Owens, went their separate ways, and they're still semi-feuding to this day. But anyway, so this was a fun match. Enzo Amore and Big Cass, I'm glad they were on the card. I said from day one that the moment they were called up, they should have gone for the tag team titles on this show. They were in fucking Brooklyn. They were super over in front of this crowd. They lost, which at that time, this is why I like doing pay-per-view reviews a year later, because at the time, I didn't have a big problem with it. I mean, it actually would have been kind of a joke if Owens lost, considering he was coming off that amazing match with Sami Zayn. The guy went on to become Universal Champion. So if he lost to Enzo and Cass, of all people, on the opening match at SummerSlam, would have been kind of a joke. So I'm glad he won. That said, This just, it was a very fun match, but it really marked the beginning of the end of Enzo and Cass. Now, they were still very much over, despite the fact that WWE messed them up again and again and again over the following year, but they were still over. But this was the beginning of the end of their prominent push on Raw, or really in WWE, because they were red hot, white hot when they first showed up the night after WrestleMania on Raw. They had that great partnership, short-lived, but it's still a great partnership nevertheless, with John Cena against the Club. And that was it. I mean, after they lost here, they went on to do literally nothing. They were not at the Clash of Champions pay-per-view. They were at Hell in a Cell, but they lost to the Club. I'm pretty sure, I think they lost? No, their team won at Survivor Series, but they were eliminated. Don't think they were at Roadblock. I think Big Cass wrestled that kickoff match with fucking Rusev. Who cares? They didn't win at Royal Rumble. They didn't win at all. They didn't win at Fastlane. They didn't win at WrestleMania. The guys are losers, and it all started with this one match. I mean, I know there were losers in NXT, but you can afford to be a loser in NXT because the crowd might still care about you. On the main roster, if you lose, you're a fucking loser. Wins and losses do indeed matter, despite what many people might tell you. Anyway, the match was fun. I enjoyed it. Kevin Owens, mocking Enzo's walk on the ring apron was pretty great. Probably the highlight of the match. The finish was pretty cool, too. Yes, it was kind of sort of botched. It was sort of sloppy, but it was still fucking cool. You can't really expect them to execute it perfectly, but what they did, Kevin Owens, instead of going for the pop-up powerbomb, he lifted Enzo up in the air and threw him over his shoulders, leading right into a code breaker from Jericho. Now, again, a lot cooler in theory than it was in execution, just because it looked like Jericho missed like 75% of it, but you can't really expect him to hit it perfectly. Like, that's a really hard move to do. From what it seemed. They never did it against. Probably the fact that, and also Enzo's pretty small too. I'm pretty sure they couldn't hit that in anyone else on the roster except for Enzo, but it was still pretty cool, and I'm glad they won. And also the post-match stuff was great too, and Jericho was like, I love you, man. Owens is like, I love you too. It was awesome. After that, for the Raw Women's Championship, we had Charlotte versus Sasha Banks. In a pretty good match, again, a little sloppy early on. Especially when Charlotte fucking dumped Sasha Banks on her head in the turnbuckle. I forgot what move they were going for, but Banks got dumped on her head, and a lot of people thought, oh my god, maybe Sasha's hurt, which is why they changed the finish. I don't think that was ever the planned finish to have, or it was the planned finish, excuse me. It was never changed to have Charlotte win. That was the plan from the get-go. So I'm pretty sure that was never, oh my god, she's hurt, let's change the finish. I don't think she was ever legitimately hurt. I know they thought that she had to get surgery, but she didn't. The Raw Women's title scene in late 2016 was such a mess. The match was pretty good down the stretch, though. Not nearly as good as their later encounters. In their encounter even on Raw a month earlier, on the beginning of the new era of Monday Night Raw of the brand split. But it was still a very good match down the stretch. Again, like I mentioned, Charlotte shockingly winning. In clean fashion, too. Clean fashion. She beat Sasha, I think, with Bow to the Queen. I know she pinned her. She didn't submit her, but she pinned her, and we have a new Raw Women's Champion. Now, this would be the beginning of the fucking game of hot potato with the title. It seemed ridiculous then to put the belt back right on Charlotte after Sasha only held it for like 3 or 4 weeks. But Bayley would debut the next night. It would make sense to put the belt back on Charlotte before Sasha won it back like in October. Again, the title scene was like flip-flopping back and forth. It made the title feel meaningless in my opinion, but anyway, still a great match down the stretch. Not their best encounter, but still pretty good. After that, for the Intercontinental Championship, The Miz defending the gold against Apollo Crews. A good match, probably an underrated match in my opinion. I thought they worked well together. They had some good matches later on in the year on SmackDown too. Apollo Crews never did beat The Miz. I know he did beat him in like a one-off with fucking like Tribute to the Troops. That aside, I mean, then again, Jack Swagger submitted Rusev at Tribute to the Troops a few years ago, so take that for what it's worth. But this was a nice match. They weren't given a ton of time. They had 6 minutes, but it was still a fun little match. Miz won clean, which surprised me. I thought Apollo Crews had this in the bag, but he didn't. So The Miz won. And then that was really, I mean, no one really cared about the IC title at that point. I thought he had a good reign going for him, but it really wasn't until he cut that promo on Daniel Bryan on Talking Smack 2 days later that people really started to take notice of The Miz in the Intercontinental Championship. After that, by far, not even close, the undisputed match of the night, and in my opinion, the WWE match of the year. John Cena versus AJ Styles, Part 2. Now, what I loved about this so much, first of all, the video package, tremendous. I've seen it a million times since it originally aired a year ago. Fucking tremendous. What I loved about this match, moreover than anything else, was the story told here. Not only in this match, with Cena struggling to put Styles away, but throughout the entire feud. I mean, I know Cena beat him ultimately, Royal Rumble, Cena wins, LOL. But I wasn't even pissed, because he put over AJ twice. The face of TNA, if there was ever an endorsement by WWE to AJ Styles, of AJ Styles, it would be right here. They had the guy beat John Cena clean. But again, going back to the story very briefly for a second, they had AJ win at Money in the Bank, albeit help from the club. I mean, the guy's a heel. What do you expect? I know he said there would be no club interference, but he's a heel. He's going to go against what he says. That's what heels do. So he wins that match, which I'm perfectly content with. People were up in arms. Why did he win? By having the club get involved. It's like, dude, just be appreciative that AJ won. A lot of people thought that Cena would win, as he has how many times before? Very rarely has Cena lost back-to-back matches, which he did in this feud, by the way. And AJ still is 2-1, 2-1 over Cena. So in my book, he's still the superior athlete. Anyway, so AJ beat Cena at Money in the Bank with help. Then Cena got his win back at Battleground, but in a 6-man tag team match, he pinned Styles with the AA off the top rope, which he also beat, I think. No, he didn't beat Owens with that at Battleground a few years earlier, like the year before. I think Owens kicked out of it, and then he submitted, which was also dumb, but anyway. So Cena got his win back at Battleground in 6-man tag team action. The club went to Raw, Enzo and Cass went to Raw, just Styles and Cena on SmackDown, one-on-one, no interference, no gimmicks, no bullshit, straight up singles match between Styles and Cena, and it delivered. The entire match was tremendous. They had 23 minutes here, and some people were a bit skeptical, critical, whatever, of them going for their finishers early on, which I agree I'm not the biggest fan of. More often than not, like typically, like best example, WrestleMania 25, Orton Triple H. The biggest difference, that match sucked and no one cared. This match was the exact opposite. People, a lot of people, and being there I can tell you this from experience, from first-hand experience, the people didn't even want to leave their seats, or didn't want to sit down, rather, the exact opposite. People just could not sit down for this match because they were so excited. It was so great. It was so tremendous. The storytelling here, like I said, Cena struggled to put Styles away. He hit him with everything. He hit him with like 2 AAs, including one off the top rope, which Styles kicked out of. The STF, which he escaped. AJ hitting everything in his playbook as well. The phenomenal forearm, the calf crusher, the Styles clash. Styles or Cena kicking out of everything. So again, it comes to a point where Cena hits the AA off the top rope. I'm like, oh, fuck, they're going to give Cena the win, which I pretty much expected coming into the match. So I wasn't like, I was going to be pretty mad, but I wouldn't have been like shocked because I knew Cena was going to win. And then Styles kicked out and the place went nuts. The place went crazy. The roof came off the Barclays Center on that night when Styles kicked out of that AA. Then Cena was like, what the hell do I have to do? And before he can go for the next AA, Styles, he hits a Styles clash, the second of the match, and then before he could pin him, I'm like, oh shit, Cena's going to catch him and then pin him. But he didn't. AJ went for the phenomenal forearm, again, the second, I think, of that match, and he pinned him clean. AJ Styles beats John Cena clean, something you never thought I or you or anyone would say, even 2 years ago. So a great finish. They did the right thing. Styles wins. Went on to become, I mean, he already was the hottest thing going in WWE at that point, in my opinion, but obviously they could not wait any longer to put the belt on him, which they did at Backlash the following month. And this was great. One of the greatest matches I've ever seen in person. And it's up there with AJ Cena, is up there with Bayley and Banks. My top 3 favorite matches of all time are as follows. Punk and Cena from Money in the Bank 2011. Bayley and Banks from TakeOver 2015, TakeOver Brooklyn 2015. And this match from SummerSlam 2016. Now, the last 2 I was there for. Unfortunately, I was not there for Punk and Cena in Chicago at Money in the Bank 2011. But it's pretty cool. I could say I was there for my 2 of my 3 favorite matches of all time. But yeah, these guys killed it. And then Cena would go away. I love the post-match stuff. He took his armband off, which didn't really play in anything. I know Cena or Styles took it rather and like wore it around like in the following months on SmackDown. But beyond that, it didn't really play into much. But still, tremendous match. Great shit here. And unfortunately, the show just fell off a cliff after that. We had the Club versus New Day for the Raw Tag Team titles. The match was whatever. Everyone was expecting Big E to come back, which he did. The place went nuts for that. It was great to see Big E back, but the DQ finish was pretty weak. And And I love Jon Stewart. I thought the guy played his role terrifically at SummerSlam the year prior in the Seth Rollins-John Cena match, which still a lot of people didn't like, but I thought he's a genuine wrestling fan. He is a legitimate wrestling fan, so I respect that. But he did some jokes prior to the match with New Day. The crowd didn't really care. And the whole premise of this match fucking was awful. I know some people liked it. I thought it was dumb. The whole ring postitis thing with Gallows and Anderson. I don't blame them. These guys are legitimately funny if you've ever heard Talking Shop. Not the most recent episode of Table for Three on the network, but rather the old Gallows and Anderson podcast from over in Japan. It was great. But anyway, so yeah, they did the whole ring postitis thing. They were doctors. They had testicles at ringside. It was fucking stupid. But yeah, again, people were happy that Big E came back and beat down the club. But the club was slowly dying a death by this point. They were killing off any momentum these guys had, even a month prior with AJ Styles. And once they broke off on their own, they were back to being a fucking joke. But yeah, the match wasn't bad. It was really just whatever. And the DQ finish was pretty lame. After that, for the WWE Championship, you talk about lame. You had Dean Ambrose defending the WWE title against Dolph Ziggler. And here's the thing. I was looking forward to this match. We had seen quite a bit of them against each other before in like random mid-card matches on Raw, but that's exactly what this was. It was a good match, but very underwhelming. That's probably the best way to put it. A very underwhelming WWE title match. It did not take long for WWE to make their top title the second-tier championship in the entire company next to the Universal title, because this felt like a mid-card match. If this was an opener for the IC title, I think people would have been more into it. They would have been more excited. But it was just very, very bland. Ambrose won clean, and that was it. Both guys were baby faces coming into this match. So I'm thinking, okay, either Ziggler's going to win, or they're going to turn him heel, or they turn Ambrose heel. Something's got to happen. And literally nothing happened. Nothing. It was a straightforward, very meh match. Again, a pretty good match, all things considered, but in the larger scheme of things, it was very underwhelming, especially for a WWE title match. And then Ziggler went out to do nothing. The guy's a fucking loser even a year later. I mean, I don't mean that as like he's bad or anything, but he always loses. He's won maybe what? One pay-per-view match against The Miz at No Mercy last year? That's it. So this was very, very underwhelming. I really honestly thought, and shame on me for thinking this, I guess, that they would actually go all in on a Dolph Ziggler push for once. I mean, they have before. They tried. A lot of start and stop pushes. This was no different. They pushed him for a cup of coffee on SmackDown, thinking people would not expect him to vie for the championship of the pay-per-view, and they didn't. I mean, people did not expect him to win, and he didn't, and he did. That number one contenders match. And then he goes on to lose. That was it. A filler feud for Dean Ambrose. Again, fine for a B-level pay-per-view, but even for SummerSlam, it was a stretch, and it was a disappointment. The SmackDown Women's match I thought was better than I thought it would be. It does not get enough credit. It wasn't amazing, but I thought it was well wrestled. It was not sloppy all that much, really, at all. And the SmackDown Women's scene I thought was killing it by this point. Even Eva Marie, who never showed up again after that. She got suspended. It was supposed to be Natalya, Alexa, and Eva Marie against Becky Lynch, Carmella, and Naomi. Eva got suspended days before the pay-per-view. They replaced her with Nikki Bella, who had just come back from injury. But the SmackDown Women's team was killing it. I thought they were really doing a good job utilizing all their women. Nowadays, it's all like multi-women matches. That's all we ever get is multi-women matches on the fucking SmackDown shows with the ladies. It sucks. But, yeah, anyway, I thought this was pretty good. Natalya, Bliss, and Nikki won. Nikki got a big pop when she came out. People loved her. And thankfully they turned her face. Now, I'm not the biggest Nikki Bella fan out there, but I've said this before. You keep her limited. You give her something to do that's not involving the title, and you turn her babyface, and we don't see the same Bella bullshit we've been seeing for the past 10 years now. She can be tolerable. I thought she had a very good run from SummerSlam to WrestleMania when she took time off for her injury. But no, this was a good match. This was good, and they put over Nikki Bella in her return match. For the Universal Championship, Finn Balor versus Seth Rollins to determine the inaugural Universal Champion. So the thing about this match, it's very weird, okay? So, it's not very weird, but the funny thing is that prior to the match, they did this whole unveiling of the championship with Stephanie and Mick Foley. Now, people got their hopes up because prior to SummerSlam, we had no idea what this belt would look like, and even more so than that, There were pictures leaking around or floating around on the internet. It was reportedly leaked. This is what it would look like. It looked like a winged eagle championship, excuse me. It looked pretty freaking cool. And then we get to the show, and we see this belt. We see this atrocity. It's literally the WWE title painted red. I mean, nowadays I don't care anymore. Who cares? But at the time, it was a very big disappointment. And people wouldn't shut the fuck up over it. The entire audience kept on chanting for the fucking belt. I mean, I get that you hate the belt. Even Seth Rollins went on Twitter after the show and was like, dude, shut up. Like, in response to Brooklyn's chants. It was funny the first time, but people kept on going on and on and on. Honestly, I mean, I liked the match at the time. I like it a little more now. I thought the match, watching it back, I had yet to see the match in full. I mean, I saw it in person, obviously, but I never rewatched the match because I didn't want to have to listen to the fucking chants. They were a lot louder in person than they were on the show. It was obnoxious. John, who I was with, couldn't even care. He could not even care. He was on his phone the entire time because it ruined the match for him, and I don't blame him. But, yeah, I mean, the match was pretty good. It was by no means great, but it was a very, very good match. I just thought the chants ruined it, especially being there live and having to hear people complain about the fucking belt. And every time it was shown, they booed, which I get, I understand that, but ruining a match, having it overshadow, the chants overshadow the in-ring action itself, I lost a lot of respect for Brooklyn that night. That was very annoying. And I get people are tired, they just want the main event, all this other stupid shit, but it's like, like that was just the tipping point for this pay-per-view for me. But yeah, Balor won, by the way. He won clean. So it would have been a big launching pad for him, the first ever Universal Champion a month after his debut. I think Michael Cole said, which he's probably right, the first ever wrestler to win a world championship in their pay-per-view debut, which is probably accurate, which is really, really cool. So yeah, that was great, but then he would drop the belt the very next night anyway because he got hurt in this match at the hands of Seth Rollins when he got tossed into the barricade. For the buckle bomb spot, but it was a barricade bomb. So that really meant nothing, but the match was good, though. You have to watch it back. Also, by the way, the funny thing is that they took out the entire unveiling of the championship from the network version. So if you watch it back on the network, I'm sure it's gone on the DVD version, too, so you might never be able to see it again unless it's on YouTube or something. But they had like a 4 or 5 minute, maybe not 4 or 5 minutes, but like a 2-minute segment at least, unveiling the title from Stephanie and Mick. And it definitely wasn't dark. It definitely was not a dark segment. That made the air. And when they came back on, when they moved from the commercial to the Universal title match, the entire unveiling is gone from the network because they knew how bad it was and how much people shit on that part of it. And it takes a lot for WWE to remove a part of a pay-per-view from the network version. They did it here. And I'm not surprised, but they really didn't want people to know how badly the fans hated that belt. And even today, people stopped caring like a week later. People got over it. I got over it. Everyone got over it. I just thought it was funny they cut it out of the network version. I thought that was not unprecedented. They've done that before with small stuff, but never anything like that before. I thought that was pretty funny. So before we got to the main event, we were supposed to have a U.S. Championship match between Rusev and Roman Reigns. Never got started. Roman Reigns beat the shit out of Rusev before that could happen. It was a cool brawl, but kind of bait and switch. A lot of people were mad the match didn't happen. It was a long show. I'm kind of glad it didn't. But yeah, that was kind of dumb. So people, and then Roman Reigns came across like a total bitch here. Like a total cheapskate heel, you know? So I thought that was pretty disappointing. In that they really presented Roman Reigns like a heel, but they never turned him heel. Anyway, so that was that. They furthered the feud, but the match never came to be, which is bait and switch. Not really all that cool, but they had to move on. They didn't have too much time left before the pay-per-view ended, which they ended up going overtime anyway. So we had the main event, Brock Lesnar and Randy Orton. I'm like, okay, the Roman Reigns Rusev stuff, whatever. The Universal title belt people hate. That was kind of disappointing. The last half of the show has been really underwhelming, but maybe the main event will salvage it. It did not. I mean, early on, the intensity was there. I had not seen the match back because I was so fucking mad at that finish and how stupid it was. So Brock legitimately broke Randy Orton open. He was instructed to. He was definitely instructed to. It was part of the finish. But they must have said, Vince is like, hey, Orton, if you got busted open in the hands of Brock Lesnar, I'll give you a title match. I'll give you a title run at WrestleMania next year. Like, that must have been what the discussion was. Because they must have known from the get-go they were going to put the belt on Orton. That's the only reason why he would have agreed to this. Early on, the intensity was nice. It was cool. But then again, the fucking stupid-ass finish came out of nowhere with Brock Lesnar making Orton bleed, and that was it. People were really, really mad at that. And again, maybe it would not have been as bad if Goldberg came out, as people were chanting for him. He wouldn't come back for another 2 months. I mean, he had a great return on Raw 2 months later, don't get me wrong, but people were really hoping for something more here. The only thing we got was Shane getting F5 by Brock, and that was it, which was supposed to set up a match for like the Rumble or WrestleMania. That never came to be, which might be for the better. I could not buy Shane as a threat to Brock Lesnar, so maybe it's for the better, but in retrospect, it was a complete waste of time. People left that show pissed. And people left SummerSlam 2015 pissed too at the screw job finish with Taker and Brock. But this was even worse. This was a big fuck you to the fans. And I really hope they don't end this year's pay-per-view the same way. And Brock will be in the main event again, as he should be. The guy's Mr. SummerSlam, really, when you really think about it. But I really hope they break they break that awful streak and they give us a good, solid ending to a main event for the first time ever. For the first time in a long time with Brock Lesnar. So I'm hoping that's what they do. Otherwise, this was a big, it's going to be a big disappointment. Third time's the charm, fingers crossed. But as far as this goes, very disappointing. So that can really sum up the final half of this show. The second half of this pay-per-view was very disappointing. Being there for it was a great time. Thoroughly enjoyed myself. The show itself wasn't tremendous. I thought it was a pretty good, if not great show. Just a lot of weird booking decisions, a lot of weird finishes. I don't think they should have put Brock and Orton on last. That was disappointing. What you need to see here. So, obviously, AJ and Cena. But that's really about it. Even Balor and Rollins, I thought was very good, but the chance ruined the match for me. So, other than that, there's really not anything worth watching from the show, which is pretty bad for a 12-match card. Or 13 if you include Rusev and Reigns, which was supposed to happen but didn't. So, obviously, I would not recommend watching the show in its entirety. It's a 4-hour show. I only watched it, and I was there, and I didn't even watch the whole thing back in its entirety. I would watch TakeOver 5 times back in its entirety, but never SummerSlam, because it was way too fucking long. Including the kickoff show. You have a 6-hour show if you include the kickoff show. That is ridiculous. And they went overtime anyway. But yeah, so a pretty good show. Very disappointing by the second half. But worth it alone. Very happy to have been there, if only for Styles and Cena too. That was fantastic. That was phenomenal. So that, guys, is my review of SummerSlam 2016. Thank you for checking it out. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, subscribe to the channel for daily content. A lot of stuff coming up this week for SummerSlam weekend. So get excited for that. I will be away, like I said. I'll be watching the shows. I'm hoping to watch TakeOver live. I think I'm flying out of South Dakota on Sunday night while SummerSlam is going on. So I can't even watch it live, but I'm hoping to watch it next Monday with Jason at his place. He can't watch it live either, so hoping to watch it with him next Monday. But in the meantime and in between time, guys, enjoy the rest of your SummerSlam week. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.